call with Allison and Lisa bi-weekly for months leading up to this, and it's the most fun I ever have. And it's also obviously incredibly purposeful. It's important to our community. It's important to bring us together into this space to celebrate people, celebrate film as an art form, and that's incredibly important to us here at the MFA. So we're obviously here to celebrate the closing of the festival with this incredible film, and so I will pass it off to the woman that brings it all together with her fantastic team, Lisa Simmons.
I can't even, I'm going to get weepy. I think we always get weepy at this time. So we're closing the in-person screenings right now on this day, and we want to begin with a heartfelt thank you to the filmmakers. I mean, bold, moving, powerful work continues to expand what storytelling can be, and I think you all know that. I mean, I've been doing this for 28 years, and every single year it just gets better. And I can't thank you enough for doing the work that you're doing, for creating films that represent all of us. We are not a monolith, right? We aren't. And I think this film festival really helps us understand that, and understand that we are more than whatever media says who we are. But we don't do this alone, right? My sister, Allison, who never comes up there on stage, who is my co-director, has brought so much to this festival in the 12 years that she has come on board as my co-director. Senior lunch. To this year we did headshots for senior lunch. Where's headshots for senior? Woo, right there. The Damien script reads that she saw because she's a Trekkie and was like, we should do this, and then we did it. I mean, I can't thank you enough. The team over here, and you guys just, everyone just, they worked tirelessly from February, and Hans over here, and Carolyn, and Dorian, and Adrian, and Allison, and Kat. She's at the watch party.
No, she's up there.
Oh, she's at the front. Because, we're doing this during the World Cup. And you guys are all still here. Did France win? Yeah. All right. So they've given so much care into this work. And volunteers. They're the first people you see when you come to the table. Warm, generosity, steady energy day after day. And our sponsors in our venues, Kristen for the MFA, Mass College of Art, who has stepped up huge and has a beautiful venue, Burning Hall in Roxbury, and just Bookish in Dorchester. So they've been amazing. And you guys, our audience, you're showing up, you're asking amazing questions. You love independent film, and that's what this festival is about, independent film. So because this festival at our core is about what? Community. Right? We are about community. That's what this is about. We are about bringing films that talk about who we are as community. And you have shown up to make sure that you understand that and support these filmmakers. It's amazing to be able to sit in an audience and watch together and have that feeling together. And I think one of the things that at RoxFilm that we really want to bring home is that we don't, watching a film is great on your iPad and if you need to catch a Netflix series, but being in community and an audience like this really makes a difference. So thank you for showing up. Because representation is not just about visibility, it's also about recognition. It allows us to see ourselves reflected in the honesty and complexity that we all reflect, that is all reflected in these films. We begin to understand ourselves, not as others see us, but as who we truly are. The festival exists because you engage with these films. Sorry, I went off my mic. And trust us to take that journey. Filmmakers, you believe in us, you trust in us, and thank you. Thank you. And we hope that you feel that our representation of your films in this festival has been a good one. So we close our in-person, but the festival's not over. Did you get your online pass? Raise your hand if you got an online pass. All right. Okay, because you can't get it anymore. So, we have an online festival because we really believe in accessibility. We really believe that sometimes you just can't make it to the in-person screening, and we want to be sure that you get to experience this festival. And we also have script reads, daily script reads that we do every weekday at noon, and those are going to continue on Monday and Tuesday. So please check those out. We have amazing actors. We have amazing script writers, and we have Andrea Lyman, who actually runs that whole script writing program, and Carol Thompson, who reads those scripts, will hire the actors, and bring them on board. So tonight, oh, you're in for a treat. Who doesn't want to end a film festival with a love story? Because we need it. We need joy. We need to close out all this horrible stuff that's going on. I mean, I guess I'm just assuming that we're all liberals in this audience, but I think we all love to have a good love story. So we have the critical acclaimed film Montmartre. Did I do that? Montmartre. With the critically acclaimed director Leon Hendricks, who's going to be in conversation following the screening, with the film star Ido Aguirre, who's right over here on the card, and Grey's Anatomy, and all of this amazing, and Maurice, and the producer Maurice Hendricks is going to be here. So we thank you for being here with us. Those of you who have attended almost every one of the films, Paula Diggs, I'm sure she's in the audience. Paula, and right now, all of you all who come to at least 118 of these films. We appreciate it. So enjoy this amazing, beautiful film. Stay for the conversation. And join us at Fort Hill Bar and Grill for our closing night gathering. So enjoy the film, everybody, and thanks so much for being here. Welcome to Roxbury. Thank you for having us. We have about 25 minutes, and I don't want to take it up with all my questions, but I do have questions. So, this is so much what Roxbury is about, right? This representation, these films that show people of color in a light that we don't normally see people in mainstream media. So it's so beautiful to watch this love story unfold in this slow, sort of very European way, right? As Americans, we're used to this quick. So can you just talk a little bit about your choices for all three of you, and your connections to each other, and why this was so important for all of you to bring a film like this to the big screen?
So am I on? Okay. You guys can hear me now? Yes. Amazing. Thank you, first of all, for sticking around for this. I don't have a lot of friends, so it's good to talk to people. This guy is it. Listen, thank you for the question. So in terms of the choices, this film is unique in a couple of different ways. It's not a romantic comedy, although there's a fair amount of jokes in it. It's romance, right? So romance is slower paced. It's rare to see like a true romance in the American marketplace, but a lot of the references are like French films. I mean, it's set in Paris, but we reference a number of films like verbally. They talk about like Amélie. There's a Polish film called, if you're like a real nerd, you want to check this out. There's a Polish film called Cold War by a filmmaker named Paweł Palikowski, which is quite beautiful, black and white, stunning. There's a film called Paris Blues, Sidney Poitier, and amazing. I'm always like so thrilled to hear people know that. But Sidney Poitier, Paul Newman. So like we're going back and pulling a lot from, I think, the history of Paris, in addition to all the stuff that we're talking about in terms of politics and writers. And there's like a James Baldwin quote and all that stuff in there. There's a French cinema history that, in a meta way, we're kind of playing with, like Melvin Van Peebles going over and starting his career. I worked in Hollywood for 10 years before I could make this film, and a big part of that journey was 3 or 4 other stories that won awards that people were going to make. It never got made until we said, like, let's just make our own movie. And so going there and being able to tap into all of that history and my sort of love and respect for what all of those people were able to do in that place, I think really just added a lot of richness and texture to this world.
Yeah. And I think the connection that he kind of alluded to is, it's a little bit of the meta storytelling. I've worked in Hollywood as well for about 10 years, and there are a lot of stories that they'll let somebody like me, who looks like me, tell. And there's a lot of freedom you could find if you have the money and the connections, but without that, you have to either take what you're given or decide to bet on yourself. And every time you decide to bet on yourself, it will always be inconvenient. It will always mean you have to say no to something else that is a story that they want you to tell. And I say they, as in the capital T they, because the studios, all of them, wonderful when they're giving you money, not so great when they're making you tell stories that feel like you are put in a box. And so I think this was an opportunity for us to choose a story that they wouldn't necessarily let us tell or pay us to tell. And so we had to make the decision to bet on that, and to bet on the fact that there are more people like us who want stories that feel representative of us, and the grand diaspora of experience and culture and connections that make up those stories. And while they might not have a large footprint in Hollywood, there's a space for them. And so I think part of our journey, as producers and family members, is that we wanted to choose a story that was not only representative of us, but also a bold expression of what it means to bet on yourself as an artist. It means taking a risk. It means telling a story specifically that you might not see a lot of. I don't know how many Black romances I've seen in the big studio system. It's been wonderful in the last 5 years, but I think there's more that can be done. And so we decided, let's start with that. We could do a horror pick. We could do, a horror flick. We could do, a quick thriller, and get the money to make that. But what if we actually took a chance and left the safety of the studio bubble and made a story that felt more impactful for where we are? And in building our production company, I think that's what we wanted to start with. We wanted to start with a story that would be very difficult to tell here in the way that we wanted. And so I think the meta side of this is that the story of our characters, Joe especially, is coming away from what is routine, from what is normal, to find something different, only to realize that you had it all along, and all you have to do is cultivate the thing that you have. And that's what I think we've been trying to do.
So you asked how were we connected. I'm a stickler for the rules, so I'll say that.
Well, you also said about how you coming to this project.
Right.
Yes.
Leon is my younger brother, and he told us his wife. So
I don't know if that was from the brothers or wife.
And so I think the biggest connection to it was the choice. Leon called me, I think it was right about after or during the writers' actor strike. And I haven't been in Hollywood as long as they have. I was an actor first. I think it's been maybe 7 years since the first time. And he was like, well, I don't know how long this is going to go on, so I think we can make something. And, I'm the oldest of 7, and he's probably the only one out back. So, I was like, okay, let's do it.
This is being recorded.
You think they don't know?
That's fair. So this is interesting too, because I feel like every movie has like an answer, like a question that wants an answer, right? You didn't go the easy route and sort of like wrap all this up in a perfect way, right? You sort of like left us sort of like, what's going to happen, or it wasn't what, like a Hollywood ending. So can you just talk about that? I can imagine as family members, as, you know, what that writer's room looked like, you know, how, like, if someone wanted to go one way or someone wanted to go the other way, but I think it's important that you didn't do it that way, that you sort of had it open or not like wrapping it up perfectly. So what was that choice? Why did you make that choice?
Right, so essentially, I'll try to do this quick because I want to get to you guys' questions, but essentially, my understanding of the romance genre is, for the most part, especially romantic comedies, but the romance genre in general is something along the lines of person has X problem with their life, they meet a guy, and then they fall in love with the guy, and then that other problem kind of evaporates from the story. And I always thought it was weird that someone would be like, boy, I'm not doing anything with my degree, I'm married to this guy now, and everything's cool. Like, she's working, like, what's going on? So for me, when I wrote this thing, I think the one thing that I knew about the story that I kind of held to throughout, and it's the thing that audience members react to in different ways. At our first screening, a guy was like, it was great, but she should have ended up with him, and he just went off for a minute about that. But my feeling about it is that in life, you know, I'm married to, I think, the most talented, brightest, you know, kindest woman. And I feel that still doesn't, like, whatever your internal issue is, that doesn't fix it. You're just now that person with that issue. So I wanted to do something that felt realistic, and something that prioritized Joe's journey rather than like co-opted the journey at the end to say that like sort of love is more important than wholeness. So I just felt like that was a stronger story for a woman, black woman.
How is that, you playing that, like not, like having that sort of nebulous sort of like in the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think that going to Paris was a lot of fun. And Jessie is a sweetheart, and you know, been longtime friends with Leon, and it was wonderful to be in Paris to do that. But just like if your home is somewhere else, there's a moment where the place that you're visiting is beautiful and thrilling and different, but you need to go back home again. And in a way, I think I experienced that with the story, where Paris was hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, as a producer, we were staying with our crew. We put Jessie in like a 5-star, you know, hotel, like first class, all that stuff. We flew coach. So because of that, there was a little bit of knowing how the sausage was made, and so there was an added pressure to get everything that we needed out of that, you know, out of that shooting schedule. But then at the end of the day, it felt really satisfying. I don't know how to put it into words, but I'll try. It just felt like we needed to come home. Everything seems greener on the other side, right? But ultimately, you're always going to have to come home to yourself. And I think as producers, we learned that. You know, you come home with a whole bunch of footage. Hopefully, you got what you needed. You know, but ultimately, you did. You have to, right? Because you're here now, and you have to make do with what you have, what's in your hand. And so, again, maybe on a meta level, I felt like the story did that and followed our journey as producers. You know, go somewhere that is so light and all amber filtered, you know, gorgeousness. And then you come home again to Raleigh, North Carolina, and you have to make sense of your life. And I think that for me it resonated, not just as a woman, but also as like an American, to be honest. You know, I think there's a lot of things that people say about what America is, what America should be, and what America is going to be. And there's a lot of, I think for us, for me at least, there's a lot of projecting that I do. Like, I want to go to Greece, I want to go to Paris, I want to go to all these places. But it's that old phrase of wherever you go, there you are. And I think this story is that. And I needed that.
What about you in terms of that conversation about the question and then the answer? And was it ever sort of like your brother going, you know, we really wrap up, we don't need to have this like happy ending and everyone needs to be?
I think we come from a background where things are not perfect.
Yeah.
So we're used to that. And we're used to making the best out of things that are imperfect. And so there was really never a conversation about should we wrap this all up or should we have this be a happy ending? It was a fine ending, So we kind of left it at that. And Leon as the writer is a tyrant, so there wasn't really any debating about what the ending was going to be.
Bureaucracy, it's a dictatorship.
All right, I want to open it up to questions for the audience. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I love the film, and there's just so many pieces of it we can explore. To me, it's a bigger journey of self-discovery, and the romance is just sort of like the car that you hitch yourself to take you through this journey. I just thought it was really fabulous, and love on a larger scale, and there's several planes of love going on here. There's the romance, this romantic story, but then there's this conflict of the love between child and mother that was not resolved. Maybe that's the next film. And the other piece of it is the love of land. And he is in love with Montmartre, France. That's his sweet spot. And she is making this journey of self-discovery, and has brought her back home. And there's there's a real contrast between, that was her cousin that she meets in the field.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cousin, that his character, contrasting with the character in Paris.
Yeah, it's so multi-layered.
There's so much in there, it's so rich.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Can you
Thank you.
comment on all that?
Yeah.
It's all there.
All those observations I think are correct, and absolutely we wanted to explore love on a number of different levels. So I think you're spot on with that.
And the mother conflict?
The mother conflict is largely off screen, but the point of it being that yes, again, Jo's a full person and she's trying to discover where her heart meets all these different things.
Hi, I have a question about cinematography and the cinematographer.
Yeah.
I was really struck by how both places were important, and yet at the beginning, at her home, and in Paris, there was so much absence of other people, so that it really was still an interior story for her, and then it opened up at the end. Was that a conversation that came through working with your cinematographer, or was that something that you kind of had already in mind? Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So it's some of this is production, right? Like we shot 5 days in North Carolina and 11 in Paris. And my theory before we, which doesn't sound impressive, but let me tell you how impressive that is. Paris, we probably shot about 50 locations in Paris in 11 days. So we were flying between places. And we didn't even shoot all day most of those days, so it was really intense. But the North Carolina parts are what you see at the beginning and very end of the film, right? And that part of Jo's world is very isolated. She is very separate, so you see there's phone calls, there's like FaceTime, there's her and a super handsome, faceless stranger who we don't get to see, but we don't see much of them, but they're kind of separate but in the same space. It was me.
Yes,
so
it was
people are like, what's that? What was that? But my most handsome guy in the movie. My point is that her world in North Carolina is intentionally very disconnected, and she feels that, and so the whole movie, to the point of this question, what's the one question? It's like Jo's quest for connection. I think in this country, in this age, for like a woman, for Jo, for a black woman, for a lot of people, if you feel very much like you're not kind of rooted in anything. So we really thought that through in terms of the color also. Like, I don't know how much you can tell this after you watch it once, but if you go back and watch the movie again whenever we get it on streaming and all that, the opening, 10, 20 minutes or whatever in North Carolina is the colors are a lot more muted than they are at the very end, right? So it gets super vivid, You see the reds popping out. It's also in Joe's wardrobe. And all that stuff really, really intentional. When she connects to the world, when she gets to Paris, the color sort of blooms. And so the DP and I talked a lot about that, as well as how do we incorporate the world. Joe's world is also, it's auditory as well. It's a much quieter world she lives in. When she hears that siren go by, it's like a big deal. So all of that was a part of the conversation.
That's really interesting, and I want to know from an actor's perspective, Ito, how did you play all that, all those different moods and those different colors?
I think it was more trusting a lot of our department heads, you know, and the ideas that they brought to the table, whether it was from wardrobe or it was from our DP. I think there was a lot of collaboration and trust, I think, to execute on that.
For me, there isn't a question at the end of this, but it was the last shot of the winding road. There was a lot of mention of the Harlem Renaissance and the Black creation period in Montmartre. And yes, so that being said, the aerial shot, I found it really stuck out because a lot of the shots throughout the movie were very first person perspective or omniscient, but there was like 3 aerial shots. That being said, with the reference of, you know, this the Harlem Renaissance at that time, how much / if did Their Eyes Were Watching God influence this? Because I caught that, but I don't know.
Interesting.
So, okay, so I'll repeat it. The question that the young lady asked was, in reference to, she specifically was talking about the aerial shot at the end, of sort of winding around that road, with Joe's driving to the land. And I think probably that sequence overall, the feeling, the question of how much did Zorno versus both Their Eyes Were Watching God make the movie? You just just the book? Okay, great. So how much did the book influence this?
That shot / Joe's character arc, because
Okay.
I saw that throughout a little bit.
This
and
shot
that
/
was
yeah.
like,
I think Joe as a character, that's a great observation. I think Joe as a character, and the movie in totality is walking in the footsteps of like a lot of traditions, some of them literary, some of them like James Baldwin is an obvious influence, but they, I don't know, it's blatant you miss it, but when they sit next to the fountain, they talk about like Amy Cesar, stuff like that, right? Like, so the film is very literate in that way, right? I think the character from Their Eyes Were Watching God, that kind of return to the town, to the land, to legacy, that's 100% what we were going for, and it is super flattering to be compared in any context to a writer like Zorno Anderson to a text like that. So I will say that I didn't look at it specifically and was like, I have to write this scene from it, but you know, this is very, very short. When I was in, I think like 11th grade, I had this teacher, shout out to all the teachers, whose name was Miss Noble, old black lady, she's a big old black lady, she was great. Miss Noble was super smart, and I was failing the shit out of that class, but Miss Noble loved me and I loved Miss Noble. So she was a lit teacher, African-American lit teacher, and I was largely failing because my attention span was like nil. But sometimes Miss Noble would come to class and she would just read part of the text. And I was getting these books and I was like, fam, wow, what's going on? The who's dead? Like, a little bit, no, what's going on? Right? But one time she read it from just the beginning of Their Eyes Were Watching God, and it was like the first 3 pages or something like that. And it's just like, and the flowers are blooming, and the air is honeysuckle, and she had this kind of like very rich, like Maya Angelou temperature voice. And I have to tell you that made me rethink everything I knew about literature, because I thought it was just like a book. And I was like, oh, this is like a sexual, like an awakening experience that's happening. And in many ways, I think that that's what's happening with Joe, is a deep, and very internal. Shout out to you guys, because you're a very smart audience, and I can tell that that's not me blowing smoke. I can tell. I was like, they're picking up on stuff that no one picks up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really,
you're gonna have a
thank you
different
for that.
experience in Boston.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Hi, that's a beautiful movie, thank you. How difficult was it to write the dialogues? Because there was such good sparring and chemistry, like, you know, but writing dialogues is like the worst thing in the world. So how did you manage that?
Sounds like a filmmaker.
There's 3 parts to this, and one of these parts I'm gonna leave for each of you, right? Like the first part is the writing. I think to be successful as a writer, like which I have been, to work as a writer, you have to have like one of a couple of skills, right? You can be great in a room, you can be great at pitching something, you can be great at doing a rewrite and elevating a scene or whatever, you can be great at dialogue. Dialogue is one of the things that I happen to be good at. And for me, it's like I enjoy the musicality of it, I enjoy the interplay, I love how the way people speak, where they start and stop, the words they use, the lexicon, vocabulary, all of that stuff says something about where they grew up, who they are, what they love, what they hate, are they impatient. So I think you can learn a lot of stuff. So I'm really obsessed with that. And when I rewrite, so much of the rewrite, like usually the scene doesn't change a lot. So much of the rewrite is me being like, she should cut him off, and then he should say it twice instead of 3 times. You know, like it's a lot of that, right? So that's the first part. It's like just getting that down. The third part is when you go to the edit room. The scene where Jesse and Ito sit in the coffee shop and he tells a story about the Boondocks, that was the first day that we had Jesse on set. So everybody, possibly including me, and I had sat with Jesse and talked to Jesse and stuff like that, but everybody was like, oh shit, Jesse's here. So now everybody, so we put the camera like, oh, Jesse's here. Well, so everybody, like, they were all, he's a celebrity, so everybody's freaking out. Like, all of Paris is freaking out when we're on the streets of Jesse. But he's also, Jesse signed up for our movie about, it was about 4 days before we shot in Paris. I showed up to meet with Jesse on a Saturday to talk about the movie. He agreed to it, and then 2 hours later, I got on a plane to go to Paris to prep the movie. I had to push everything back a week, like every permit request, every insurance statement, every other cast member, the musicians, everything, because we had to get Jesse time because he was coming from a shoot in Italy. So, when he gets there, he and I have not had extensive conversations about the script. I was just like, here's the script, and I would call him at the end of the day, you good? Yeah, you seem good, and then I would get off the phone, right? Because I had other stuff to do. So when he showed up, that scene it's like 10 pages or something, just them talking. And that kind of thing can die if you don't have great performances. So in short, he started talking, and he likes to improv a little bit, but he's also finding his way into the words. And I had this whole scheme for how I was gonna shoot it, and I was like, can't possibly shoot that way. So I had to chop it up a lot more than I wanted to. But in doing that, this is the third thing, you find when you're editing, like, oh, he's got a little look, he says that with like a little flair, so you're rewriting it and you're cutting out text, oh, I don't need all those extra words, and you're feeling it more than you are intellectualizing it. The middle step is that improv thing, that's the connection between the two.
And that was a lot of that first few days of just finding each other. Me and Jesse knew each other, but in terms of this relationship on screen, we had to find what the interplay was and just playing with each other and honestly ribbing each other and finding what that river was. And so some of that means that we use Leon's words as a jumping off point, and we go on tangents, you know, and take up a long time. And then it comes to the post-production for them to find the stream, as it were, where they want to end up. And so it was really, I think, generous. Leon is a very generous director, and he let us explore and find different ways to sometimes come away from the script and then find our way back to it.
Lisa?
Sorry. I just want to say that it's really fantastic. I love everything about it, our design, the dialogue, and the color. But I also, the question I had was, how much of that came provision, and you kind of answered that. So I was going to also ask, what camera did you guys use?
We shot on the Arri Alexa Mini LF because we had to be pretty mobile, like a lot of shoots on the ground. Most of it is permitted, but in Paris, they are not that friendly towards poor, like I kind of respect it, but they don't really love productions in general. If we had like $100 million, they might have liked us a little bit more, but as it stood, they were like, you got a permit, and we'd show up and be like, we don't want you to use the permit yet. And we'd be like, oh, okay, and we have, instead of a day to shoot, we'd have 2 hours to shoot. And so it was extremely challenging, but we made it through.
I think we have time for one more question, so right there. Chris, I think we're asking.
Oh yeah, I guess it is me. Leon, everyone, that was an amazing, fantastic, enthralling film. I have a question I want to pose to you, and that is, of all the days that you were shooting with the tight schedule that you were on, what would you say is the most challenging day, and how did you get through it to know that you have a film?
That's a great
That is a good question. Go ahead, Reese.
So, I'll talk about the day that I have to shoot. I'm talking to Leon, and he says, yeah, your call time is 7 o'clock in the morning. I was in DC, and we were shooting in North Carolina. And so, I just repeated it. I said, 7 o'clock? He's like, yeah. And so I was like, okay, so that means that I have to start driving at 3 o'clock in the morning to be there at 7. And he's kind of like, I mean, that's a callback to him being a tyrant and the second best looking guy on film. And so I started driving at 3 o'clock in the morning, and what you don't realize, or I didn't realize, I didn't think about, is everything is closed, right? Every time I had to use the bathroom, there's nowhere to go to the bathroom. So I was gonna pull off to the side of the road, and every time I pull off to the side of the road, a wild animal jumps out. So back home. I have an awful bladder, but I made it all the way to North Carolina just at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we got to shoot.
I think generally probably the hardest thing was the music scene because they kicked us out super prematurely, and we had 5 people in there that we had to figure out how to cover. And we had to do it all in like 3 hours or something like that. I'm going to give details just, but I just want to say this one thing. If you guys would please come to the after party, because we'd love to talk to you more, get videos, stuff, Instagram, so you guys can do all that stuff, and also we want to get your information so you can follow film.
Thanks again for the question, for all your questions, for being here for an extra 25 minutes to stay with us. But in answer to your question, I think the hardest day was the scene on the bridge where Joe was saying goodbye to Toussaint, and I think it was hard because not only was that the last scene of the day, but we were working against the light. We had to capture it during golden hour. And I think that scene in particular, I felt very attached to in the sense that really quickly, as Leon's wife, I have opinions. As his actor on his film, I have opinions. Those two things can't intermingle, or else you don't have a film. And I think that was one of the days where I really had to lean on Leon, the director, not Leon, the husband. And I think it was trusting that the words would tell the story if all the emotions were there. And I think as the wife, I had opinions about that, and I had to put them to the side and trust that Ito, the actor, would do everything that she could to make the work work. And he, as the director, would do everything that he could to make the work work, despite the light going down and having to, tell both sides of a really complicated story between two people, where nobody is right and nobody is wrong, And so I think that was the hardest day, partly because of that, really delineating what lanes are we in.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.